Oh, here we go. That's a good start, isn't it? That's a good start. Oh, that's it. That's the third thing then. They say everything goes in threes. I was just going to say, we'll start again. Welcome back. Hello. Welcome back to another Monday Night live stream. I was just saying, has it been a week? Did we miss last week's? That's right. So, tonight, stress. I know exactly why the microphone was turned off. So, what happened was, I set everything up today. Everything was working perfectly. I did a little kind of test record to make sure everything was working fine. I even left the PC on and left everything set. I come up tonight. I kind of had a bath, had a nice soak, kind of got ready for the stream. Just thought I'd have a last minute check, make sure everything's working. The microphone was absolutely kind of like topping out. It was like, even when there was no sound, it was bouncing around in the middle, like with loads of background noise. And whenever I spoke, it was just really loud. And when I was testing it to see what it was, obviously it was looping back on itself. So I muted the microphone to make sure that it wouldn't do that, because it was really loud. What seems to have happened is there must have been an update and it maxed out the microphone volume in the Windows settings. So I found that was okay. We were sorted. The second thing that went wrong was I sat down with my Stream Deck to change between the different scenes and stuff, and I decided it didn't want to work. So I went into the settings for that one. Normally it's got like a profile, so it remembers which scene to click when you click the different buttons. It couldn't remember any of the data, said it was retrieving sort of settings or something like that. I've tried uninstalling it, I've tried reinstalling it, so that's not working. So we're working by trusty mouse and me looking on the screen going, oh yeah, that's the scene I want tonight. And then the third one is I forgot to turn the bloody microphone back on. So at least we know they come in threes. They're all out of the way. Everything should be nice and smooth tonight. So, welcome back. Welcome back, folks. I did see it really quick. I don't know who it was. Somebody really quickly saw it. But yeah, thank you very much. I'll be double checking everything now as we go through the different scenes. Make sure they're all working. Oh, let's see who we've got in the chat. So normally when I'm on a normal stream, the mouse for the PC that does the streaming, I can just put that to one side. I can use the mouse I've got here, because I've got my laptop here with all the chat on, so I can just normally use that. And I've normally got my Stream Deck to switch between the screens. Now I've got to keep remembering to jump between the different mice. Jump between the mice. Is it mouses or mice? It should be mice, but it sounds wrong when it's talking about computer mice. So yeah, I'll be jumping around. Let's just start with me to go on and see who we've got in the chat tonight. So we have got ASDF. Good evening, BlackJack Arena. We've got Mark Wright. We've got Lord Maiden. Krabby. Hello, mate. Hope you're well. We got Ortega as well. Saying he can't stay, but I hope you see you in the catch up. Hello, Ortega in the catch up. We've got Red Rose Wargaming. Hello there, Anna. Says YouTube actually sent me a reminder. Evening all. We've got Scott Longworth, Steve Evans, we've got Busey in, we've got Pomsey as well, Spiderlord's in, Christian Rees, thank you mate. If only you could control the tech side as well as controlling the chat mate. That would make it a lot less stressful. We got High Lord of Terror, good evening to you. Peter Nicholas as well. He says he's not here tonight, he sent his 3D copy. Who would have thought, folks, we're talking about 3D printing tonight. My 3D printer and all bits of kit and accessories and everything arrived on Saturday morning. Who would have thought the printing side of it would be pretty much straightforward, and actually just doing a normal stream would be the stressful bit. Lee Millward's in as well. He says he might be able to watch some of tonight while he's cleaning some minis. Nice one. Hello to the Welsh Wanderer as well. Hello mate, how are you doing? He said he hasn't been in ages, and he's in his man cave painting a red arrow. I saw that mate. Yeah, a cheeky bottle of Jack Daniels on the side as well mate. It looks very nice. James Zorm, greetings to you mate. He's looking forward to delving into the printing. I won't be doing any printing tonight, but what I do have, folks, is here's a little sneaky peek of what you'll be able to see tonight, if I can get it right. Yes, there was intentionally no sound for that bit. Don't worry about it. It wasn't that the sound isn't working. Don't worry. I've managed to set up a second camera in the room that I use for 3D printing. So when we get to talk about it, I can actually show you what I have and we can kind of talk through it. So it's a proper interactive one tonight. It's not just me sitting here. I can actually show you what I've got set up, why I've got it set up the way. Of course that light's gone off because I forgot to plug the power lead into it and the battery's died on it now. Oh, do you know what? We're just going to crack on. I may get In fact, you know what it is? Let me plug the battery in. Let me plug the power lead in. Otherwise, that's going to be really dark on the street tonight. Hang on 2 seconds. They say they come in 3s, they actually come in 4s. Let's get back in the chat. James Zorm, hello to you, mate. Dave Mackay, hello. He says, welcome to the 3D Printing Club. The rabbit hole is open. John Estel says, I hope things calm down for you. It was just a bit stress. As you can see, a bit more stress as well. Scotty Longworth saying hello to Dorian there. Warwick, good evening to you, mate. Hello, Mark Colley says he's just waiting to watch BlackJack Legacy show off his new toy. Shh, I might even show you my 3D printing stuff as well. Mark saying, I hope all is okay. Just technical wizardry stuff, mate. Who'd have thought I'd do this for a job now? Tiny War Games, hello to you, mate. How you doing? Peter Stockdale, VJ Morph, good morning, VJ. Scott Webster, hello, mate. This is interesting to see how this goes. Josh Price, good evening to you, mate, as well. We've got Tasty Brain Drain, we've got Fomorian. Mark Cox, he says, need to convince my wife that she needs a 3D printer in her life. Any suggestions? Then we got to the bit where there was no sound, but we're all right now. So hello to all of those folks. Tell me no sound. We got, who else? Neil Anderson, hello fella. We've got Connor in as well, seeing it's happened again. Chris Dawes. We've got Marcus, the Super Pumpkin Man. Tasty Brain Drain for Morian. We've also got Paul Inman. This is really funny without sound, just watching BlackJack Legacy gesticulating. So it's just looks like some kind of really badly dubbed kung fu film. Andy Smith, week off, have we? Do you know what it is? One stream I've missed. I still did Wednesday and everything worked okay. Bobby Clark, good evening to you, mate. Hello, Gareth Lewis. Bloggy's in as well. Hello. Yoakum, hello. Who else? Peter Nicholas said something there. Said it's just as well you've got talent. Oh, God. Palmsy says, I struggle with MS Paint, so I appreciate your technical problems. It's just been one of them nights, mate. Honestly, it all went perfectly this afternoon. I did a little test record so that what happened when I switched from this one over to that one to make sure that when I'm in that room there, the microphone that I've got set up in that room works okay and it doesn't get feedback through this one. Everything was working perfect. That's why I didn't touch a thing. Anyway, let's get crack on. It's mouses. Yeah, I thought it was mouses, Christian. It didn't seem right saying mice. Tony Howell, hello to you, sir. Josh Lawson is in as well. Hello, Josh, mate. How you doing? A poor workman blames his tools. The only tool to blame here, mate, is me tonight. That's for sure. Tony said it's Mises. Tell those Mises to pieces. Stuart Murray, hello, mate. Says, welcome to the 3D Printing Club. Hello, mate. We've got Axe and Axe. Hello to you. Colin Wakeland, hello to you, Colin. We've got John Ashley Smith. Says, so you went mad and bought a 3D printer. I'll kind of talk. I'll talk about sort of how I got to this point, because I've been talking about this for a while. I've been probably like quietly researching this away for about 12 months in the background. We did a live stream a while ago where I was saying like, is now the time to get it? And I've kind of hummed and hawed, and for it, I saw an email the other day, which was from a year ago, when there was a company contacted me about doing some 3D printing kind of sort of promotion stuff for them, and I just said, look, I don't do advertising, but by the same stretch, I haven't got a 3D printer either. But I was considering it at that time. So that just shows you how long I've been kind of like humming and hawing. Arnold says, a shelf. The reason you can see a shelf, mate, is because when I go and stand in there, it'll be pointing at my face, and then we'll move the camera around. James says, what happened? So I have 3 lights in front of me to get a nice even light. The one on the left hand side obviously needs to be plugged into the mains. It's battery powered as well. It can charge up. But because I've been using it for other stuff and I forgot to plug the bloody power lead in, the battery died on it. So I had to go and get the battery. I had to go and get the power lead. Marcus is saying, careful, you might have gremlins in the room. Oh, I know. It's a good job that I've done it this many times now. When something goes wrong, generally I know straight away. I mean, the battery dying on the light is pretty obvious. But generally I kind of know when I can fix it pretty quick on the fly. Fiji says it's a comedy of errors this evening. Hopefully, everything's okay. I think we got through the worst of it. Andrew Fairbanks, hello to you, mate. He said, I need a commercial break. I bloody did as well. John says, those IKEA hanging shelves bring back some traumatic memories. You want to see the bolts, mate? I've gone into the wall to hold them up. They're not going anywhere. I could hang off these ones. James is saying a sound fail. No, not a sound fail, mate. Not this time. Lisa, I don't think I would fiddle with cables the way he is tonight. Yeah, I should be wearing rubber gloves, I think, shouldn't I? Just to make sure. Peter says £10 says Andy's chair collapses before the end. Don't even tempt fate, mate. Steve Evans, he says, has Andy been on the beers tonight? Do you know what it is, mate? I wish I had a beer now. I've got orange juice. I should have had a beer. That's what I should have had. If my beautiful wife next door hears this, she might actually get me a beer. Technical difficulties, yes. John says, you rolled one for luck. You know what my dice rolling's like, mate. I always roll one. Joachim says, best stream so far. With all these errors, we don't want to 3D print anymore. The 3D printing is the only thing that's gone right, believe it or not. James J says, when I saw this stream this morning, I checked the Amazon link. Next day shipping on Prime, so tempted. That's where I bought mine from. That's exactly where one of the reasons I did mine. So everything pretty much that's in the room I'm going to show you in a bit. Other than things like sort of kitchen towel and cloths and bits and pieces, I bought everything on Amazon and it all came in less than 24 hours. Fantastic service. VJ says time for a cup of tea before hitting the painting table. Let's see what else got. Lee Reynolds, hello to you, mate. Hello to Jack as well from Shaggy Wargaming. He says, now you have a 3D printer, you're going to make a mini Andy army. No, they'll probably all be missing legs and kind of one arm and stuff. We've got Dead Hands says, evening, sir, and chat. Yes, hello to you. Tony says, Steve Jackson, Hugh Fighting Fantasy, the cursed live stream. Phil Campbell, hello, mate. He says, I'm only here tonight because I'm Sky Plus in the Harry and Meghan thing. Thank you very much. We are more important than ex-royals, eh? Steve Uden, hello. He says, it's Hivescum Steve from Some City Radio. Hello, mate. He says, just bought the same setup, Elegoo, Mars Pro 2, and a Mercury. Give to me your wisdom. I'm obviously no expert, but I have done lots and lots of research. I've obviously done some prints now as well. I've kind of sort of took some time to decide what was the best thing for me to buy. So I can talk from a beginner's perspective with a little bit more knowledge now. As I like to say, I know enough to be dangerous. Dave Hargis, hello to you. Because it's saying offset 072. Gareth says, Elegoo seem to have been chucking the printers to YouTubers. Please tell me they did the same for you. They did not, mate. I know everybody's been getting free ones. Everything I'm going to show you tonight in that room, I've bought with my own hard-earned money. Nothing's been given to me for free. I've not asked anybody for anything. Nobody's reached out and offered me anything. I've not been sent any printer files or anything like that from companies. I've not been kind of like sort of promised any, if you get a printer, we'll do some work with you. This is purely me just deciding after 12 months of kind of, shall I not, spending my own money on this. So everything I'm going to tell you tonight is 100% honest. It's my own experiences. None of this is sponsored. It's not a promotional video, mate. So yes, I know everybody else seems to be getting them. I haven't. Andy Smith. Tony says, going to treat myself to a Saturn for my birthday and a wash and cure station. Love my Mars, but the 4K speeds and bigger build plate is too tempting. I'll come on to that stuff and why I didn't go for the Saturn at some point. Andrew says, add some vodka to the OJ. To be honest, I've got some whiskey there. I might finish this orange off in there, hit the whiskey. VJ says, how do people level those bloody things? VJ, sorry. See, even looking at that picture of Andy with a 3D printer rustles my jimmies. The ball head on the Elegoo looks like such a pain in the arse compared to the 4Hex. It works perfectly, mate. There is nothing at all to worry about. It's kind of spring-loaded inside. You loosen the two bolts off. You drop the head down. You just kind of square it up against the kind of the LCD screen, and then just tighten it up. And because it's flat against the bed, it's level. There's nothing to worry about, mate. Honestly, to be honest, the level of the bed is really, really simple. The only thing I've heard folks having problems with in the past is if they've had a warped print bed, if there's been a problem with it, if it hasn't been perfectly flat to start with, that's caused them some issues. But the level in itself is like for setting your zero-axis home position was really, really simple, mate. Hope Lives says, evening folks, here hoping I don't get excited by your printer. Yeah, maybe you will, maybe you won't. We'll come on to those ones. John saying the bolt holes weren't on 16-inch centres as my home was framed. Weird, sweetie. Mine's not gone through those either. If you're talking about the shelves, mate, I've put like proper sort of cavity wall fitting stuff on them and stuff. Steve says, so what extras were essentials to buy along? I'll come on to that, mate, when I go into that room and I'll show you the stuff. Steve Bonner says, 3D printers interest me so much, so many questions. Yes, we'll come on to that. What I'll do is I've got my phone with me, so I'll take my phone into the room when we go there so I can still see the chat. And if you've got any specific questions when we're in there and I take you through the bits, I'll be able to do that as well. So, Welsh Wanderer says, get the whiskey down here. Yes. So, what I'm going to do then is, if I click that button, that'll record this little bit, and that means I can clip this out and kind of use it for future video stuff. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to take you into the 3D printer room. That sounds really grand. This is my studio, if you like. This is a spare bedroom in my house. I'm very, very fortunate that this spare bedroom has an ensuite in there as well, an ensuite shower room. So there's a shower, a toilet, and a sink in there. It never, ever gets used. Basically, I'm fortunate that there's a bathroom just outside this door and stuff. It never gets used. I don't even think the shower's been used since we moved into this house. The sink's really handy because when I'm using my airbrush and stuff, I can go and use the sink. So what I decided to do was, for a few reasons, I've put a shelf, as a desktop, if you like, inside that room over the top of the toilet. I'll show you all this stuff anyway. And the reason for that is it means that it's a self-contained 3D printing room. Space is really tight in here, and I need to kind of make the most of what space I've got available, so I'll show you that in there. It also means I can close the door when things are printing, so any noise when I'm recording stuff and that, there's none of that to worry about. And it also, because there's extraction in the bathroom, it means it kind of takes away any resin smells and stuff, and we'll come on and talk about resin smells. So yes, it's not, it kind of is ideal, but it doesn't sound it when I say it's in a shower room there. But what we'll do is I'll switch across to the other camera. I'll quickly run over there and I'll take you through what we've got. So, how professional is that? Let me just make sure my chat's working here. Yes. So while we're talking here, it might be a little bit echoey. Just let me know. Give me the thumbs up, folks, if the sound's okay, because I can't see the screen from back over there. So let me know that's okay. It's a little bit echoey in here because obviously there's no soft furnishings and stuff. It is a shower room. Libra says this is like MTV Cribs, except less flash. So yeah, everybody's saying it's in. Dave said it's a little quiet. I kind of mess about with the sound now, mate, but I think it's just there. I'll get a bit closer to the microphone. So let me just put this down a second. So what we've got in here, folks, is, let me just, this is what I've got here. So, as promised, there's the shelf that I built, kind of like a frame over the top of the toilet. There's a radiator here as well, which is great for kind of making sure that there's the temperature's pretty consistent in here. And then I've got this is basically just a nice wood frame, a bit of MDF as a desktop, and then I bought some like sticky back plastic, just to kind of cover it so it's easily cleanable. I sealed the MDF, then it means if any resin or anything gets spilled on there, it's much easier to clean up rather than kind of worrying about like MDF tops and things like that. And I used that because I had all of that just kind of lying in the garage, so it cost me nothing to do that. Down here as well, I'm using underneath here for some storage, and I've also got down here, you can see as well, I've got a bin here with a bin bag in as well. So it means that everything's in here, like, sort of at hand to be used. So what did I buy? I bought an Elegoo Mars 2 Pro. When we get back to the main table and stuff, I'll explain exactly why I chose that one over the other ones that are available. I also bought the Elegoo Mercury Plus, which is the wash and cure station. So what it does is you can wash your prints in here. So for those that don't know, once you've printed the resin, it needs to be cleaned. You need to clean off the wet resin from the outside. So you need to put it into this and clean it. And then also with resin prints, you need to expose them to UV light to harden them, to cure the resin. So that machine actually also does that as well. And I might be able to show you kind of like a little bit of a a bit of a thing on that one. What else did I buy? Because one thing that you have to realise is when you get into 3D printing, it's not just a case of, oh, printers are pretty cheap, I'll get one of those. There's a number of different things that you have to have as well. So what else did I get? I got some resin. And the idea of having these shelves up here as well is it just means I've got a little one in the house. It means anything of any kind of like nastiness or anything like that is kind of out of reach for him. So I bought some of this ABS-like photopolymer resin, the grey one. I like the prints being in grey. I think they always look a little bit easier to see once they've been done. And then I also bought, you'll see up the top there, is that I bought 5 litres of isopropyl alcohol IPA. And it's IPA that you use to clean the resin. You put it inside the cure station as well, inside the wash station, to be able to clean the prints off. What else do you need to buy? You also need to buy gloves. Now, you will never understand just how many disposable gloves you will go through. You need to buy decent ones as well. These are nitrile gloves because they don't react to any kind of chemicals or anything like that. Resin is not nice stuff. You do not want to get it on your skin. So you will be constantly putting gloves on to do jobs, taking gloves off to do jobs, putting gloves on to do jobs and stuff. So don't underestimate just how many of these that you'll need to buy as well. So I also bought some microfiber cloths. So microfiber because it doesn't scratch. Kitchen towel you can use as well, but like kitchen towel paper is actually quite abrasive. So you don't want to be cleaning things like the FEP bath inside the printer and stuff with them. Microfiber cloths, what I've done is I've kind of separated them up, because what I've got in this system here is I've set it up so I've got like a contaminated side. So anything on this side has potentially got resin on it or remains of resin on it, and I should always be handling stuff here with gloves. And then what I've got on this side is I've got a clean side, so anything over here is kind of set up so that I know when I take my gloves off I'm not going to get anything on my skin. So this is the clean one that I use. I just keep that one up there out of the way, and then I've got a one here that I shouldn't be touching, but I do know everything's clean here at the moment. What else did I buy? I already had safety specs. I'm not going to put them on. These are the ones I used to use when I went to play airsoft. In fact, I will put them on. There you can see them. You only get one pair of eyes. People might say, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that dangerous. Fine, if you want to take the risk, take the risk. For me, for the sake of putting these on while I'm pouring resin or while I'm kind of washing anything down, I'd much rather it got on the front of the glasses than it got in my eyes. So safety specs, I would say, are a must as well. I also bought a funnel. This is a silicone funnel. So basically what happens is once you've finished printing, you will want to put any resin that is still in the bath back into the bottle. So a funnel, this one is just a collapsible one. So it just kind of folds out like that. And then you also want, you get some of these with the printer, but you'll need to buy more as well. These are filter papers, like for paint strainers and stuff like that. You basically pop that inside, pour your resin in here, back into the bottle, and then that way you can kind of maximize the usage of your resin as well, and there's no wastage. So I also bought, because I wasn't sure how many filters you got, I bought some extra filters as well. What else did I get? You got a couple of face masks with the printer as well. So these are handy just to kind of sort of filter any kind of bits of fumes or whatever. If you want to if you find the fumes are bad, you might want to get like a respirator mask. It depends where you're working. If you're working in an area with some kind of ventilation, it's not too bad. Before I crack on, I'm just going to double check on the chat here. Andrew says you shouldn't store dangerous chemicals above you. Well, I'd much rather they were above me, mate, than in touch and range for my little ones. So yeah, I'll take that risk. Christian saying, make sure you hold that funnel when you're filtering. I spilled resin all over my desk because the funnel collapsed. Yeah, I did, mate. I did notice that one yesterday. I kind of I made sure I was holding it. So what else do you need as well? Let's come down to here, because there's a few other bits and pieces. Some of this you get with the kit, some of it I bought myself as well. So if we come down here, you get this scraper. Now this scraper is to take the prints off the print bed when they're finished. Do not, under any circumstances, use this to clean out the resin tray, or you will puncture through the bottom of the FEP plate. You get a plastic scraper as well. This is the one that you want to use to just kind of to move the resin along the bottom of the bath. You'll see in here when I take the lid off, there's a bath in there with some resin in, so I can show you what that is. You also get like a little bracket. This bracket allows you to, in fact, I'll show you what this does. So once you take the lid off this is all clean, so I'm okay with this at the minute because it was all clean when I took it out. Once you've printed and your little resin print is hanging on the upside down of that, if you put this bracket on here and then you put this onto here, what that does is it allows all of the resin that's on the plate to just drain back into the tub there. So it just means that you're not losing any resin. You can get the most out of it as well. So let me just take it off. You can see there in the bottom as well, this is the actual resin bath as well. I've got some resin in there. I finished the print this morning, and I do sort of plan on doing another print sort of before I head off to bed tonight. So yeah, I've just left that in there. If you're not gonna, I'll just put that back. If you're gonna not use the printer for probably 48 hours, I would suggest taking the resin back out of the bath. I'm going to switch it on just so you can hear the noise. There's a carbon filter in this. I'm not sure how good the carbon filter is, because normally carbon filters need replacing. However, it needs a slightly stronger fan, so I'll switch it on. I don't know how much the camera will pick that up, but so it's just power on there now. So I'll stay quiet for a second and see if you can hear the fan. But that is essentially kind of how it runs. And you can see on the front here there's a touch screen. I'll zoom in a little bit. So you can see there's a touch screen on the front there as well. Right, let's switch that off. Right, so that is the printer. Yeah, kitchen towel. You'll need mountains of this stuff as well. Like the gloves, you'll go through it. It's really handy to put down just in case it kind of mops up any little bits of spills, any drips, anything like that. You'll always want to keep some handy. Other stuff that I bought myself. I bought a spray bottle. This was £1 from like B&M or something like that. There is IPA in this. It just means that when I'm cleaning things down, I can kind of spray some of the isopropyl alcohol, and it's just easy to use. And I also bought one of these kind of like Tupperware sandwich tub things, the lock and seal ones, and I've put a little bit of IPA in there as well. So what it means is once I have taken the build plate and I've taken the resin kind of print off it, I can put the build plate just in there, and just to be able to kind of clean the excess resin off that as well. What I also bought, I bought some of these baking trays, just kind of cheap ones. I think they were £2 each. I bought a couple of those. The idea being that whenever I do any work, if I'm like scraping the model off the build plate or anything like that, I just put a bit of kitchen towel in there, and it means I'm keeping anything off the actual work surface. Memory stick. You load your STL files, which is how the printer knows what to print. You load them with a memory stick. This came with the printer as well. And then to come to the wash and cure system, I'll just lock this off here, and we'll be able to have a little look at this. So what comes with this is, I'll take this lid off here. You basically get this tub here. This has got again, this has got IPA in as well, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but there's basically like a little agitator, a rotator in the bottom of there. And what basically happens is this spins here and spins this around. So what you would do is you pop that on, you unclip this off, you have this basket, so you'd put your resin piece. So for example, these are one of the test prints. You'd put your resin piece into the basket, and then basically you would lower that into there. I won't put it in so it doesn't get wet, and then that would basically go into the bottom of the IPA. You would pop the lid back on, and then basically switch it on. In fact, if I switch the power on here, I'm not sure. I'll try and zoom in so you can see it. Get a little bit closer. And essentially, what happens is you switch this. So there's a little wash symbol here. You can put it on. I'll just put it for 30 seconds and then start it up. And you might be able to see in there how it's agitating. You can imagine if this basket's inside there, and that's how it's cleaning inside there. So it means you haven't got to kind of like agitate it yourself. Everything gets done on the fly there as well. So I'll let that finish, and then I will show you what the next stage would be after you've cleaned it. You normally put it in for about 5 minutes to clean that off. So that's 2 seconds, 1. So that'll beep. That means it's done. So what you would do next is you would take this lid off again. You would lift this basket out and take this off and pop this lid back on, because with it being isopropyl alcohol, it does evaporate, so you want to keep it in a sealed container. Just move that out of the way. The next bit you would do is you then take this little disc. It's got a couple of locating pins on the bottom. You then pop it into here. You would pop your miniature onto the plate. I'll put it for a few seconds, but I won't do it for too long. You then change, let me just go out a little bit with it. You would then change the setting here to the UV cure lamp, pop it on for how long you want to do it, and then press the button, and you will see there how the plate is turning inside, and you've got the UV lights inside. I'll stop that one now, actually, just because we don't want to cure that one. But there we go. That is essentially. That's essentially how the process goes. And the only thing that you would need to do if you're doing more detailed miniatures, these are the test pieces that come off. These ones basically kind of are straight onto the bottom of the build plate, and you just scrape these ones off. They're ready to clean and cure. If you're doing something that is a little bit more technical like this, you'll need to have supports on these, and depending upon how you've done the supports on them, you may need to use some clippers to basically clip off the supports and stuff. Again, these come with the printer. So as you can see, it's quite straightforward. It's not as convoluted as you might think it is, but there's some kind of like safety things to take into consideration. But I'll kind of come on to sort of like a workflow process and stuff. But the big things I would say to take away from this is that don't just think the printer's cheap, I'll just get a printer, because you have to take into consideration all of the extra bits and pieces, the consumables that you'll need. The wash and cure sort of system is completely optional. You can do it just by sort of putting them in here, putting them in pickle jars, giving them a screw and stuff. You can just do it like that, and you can buy a UV lamp. You can sit them outside in the sun if you live somewhere nice and hot. Not really an option in the northeast of England, but those are basically kind of some of the step-by-step stuff. I'm very quickly just going to have a quick look in the chat here and see if there's any specific questions while I'm looking. Paul saying, did your printer not come with silicone seal for the bottom of the cover? Mine Mars Pro did. It did, mate. It did come with a silicone seal for the bottom. However, every review I've read says that as you lift the lid off, there's not enough clearance between the tray and the side of the cover, so they keep getting dragged off and falling into the resin. So I just didn't even bother putting mine on there for that reason. Christian saying you can leave the resin in the vat for a long time. Mine's been sitting there for 3 weeks, but you do have to stir it. Something I'd read said about 48 hours. I guess if I'm not going to use it very often, I'll put it back, but it's a new toy. I'm going to be wanting to use it anyway, so I plan on leaving it in there. I'll see if there's any other chats. Any other specific comments? I think that is probably pretty much it. What I'll do is I'll pop back to the main screen, the main camera there, and then I'll have a look through the chat and see if there's any specific questions. So the time it takes me to get back there, if you have any specific questions, we can always pop back and have a look at stuff. I mean, one thing I didn't really show you in any detail was this. This was the first sort of successful mini that I printed. This is the sort of bags of detail, and this is probably, the light in here probably isn't the best. It's probably like sort of blinded out. There's a little light on the front of the camera as well, but as you can see, it's nice and clean. This all printed in one piece. It wasn't like I had to stick bits together or anything like that, and it is super, super crisp. So yeah, if there's anything you want to ask me, please do while I nick back to the chair there. But yeah, we'll head back over. We're back. Right, let's have a quick look. So I'm going to just dive in. I'm just going to have a look at a few of these things. Andrew Fairbanks says, dumb question, how is the smell? Is there a smell? Right, so a couple of things. One, there is definitely a smell. I can smell it. It might be the resin that I'm using is causing that smell. I have read, let me just move this down a little bit. I have read that different types of resin have different kind of smells. What I would say is it's not awful. I mean, let's talk about harmful smells and sort of not very nice smells as two separate things. I wouldn't say it was awful. It's kind of chemically, it's not like atrocious. It doesn't fill through the whole house. What I didn't show you is that there's an extractor in the ceiling as well, would have been a bathroom and stuff, or I might have shown you. So that's basically pulling kind of the majority of any kind of smells away. I close the door. It's not like it's kind of wafting through the house. It's not like everybody can smell it. My wife's got quite a sort of sensitive sort of sense of smell. She said it's not kind of like, it's not causing any problems anywhere else in the house. As for harmful smells, I guess there's a lot of information that says it's not great for your health. There's also some other that said it's not that dangerous. So I guess you have to research it for yourself and take it and understand for yourself. If you're not in an area that is well ventilated, if you're in an enclosed sort of confined space for long periods of time, sort of like when I'm in there, I kind of go in, I set the printer away, and then I come out, I close the door, I leave the extraction on, and I leave the room. So it's not like I am sitting working in that room. If you've got a printer on the desk sitting next to you in an office or in a spare room or kind of in the garage or wherever you're working, if you've got the printer on the desk next to you, you might notice more of a kind of like a nasty smell, and you might not want to either sit next to it, or you might want to breathe there, sort of have some kind of respirator. But you certainly want to have ventilation in the room. Open a window, open a door, something like that. Catan says, yes, there's a strong resin smell, kind of like strong varnish. I'll be honest, the IPA actually smells stronger. When I open the tub of IPA, that actually smells stronger than the resin. What I would say is, though, if there are resins that don't smell, it doesn't mean that because it's not smelly, it's less harmful. Like that, the two don't go hand in hand. So take any precautions, really. Tiny Wargame says, fumes can be strong, but you get used to them. As always, have adequate ventilation. Yeah, I mean, I noticed them. If anybody says they don't smell, it must be to do with certain types of resin, but it's kind of faint. It's not obnoxious. It's not like you kind of walk in and go, whoa, it's really bad or anything like that. But I do have some ventilation in there, but it's noticeable. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. Yeah, Catan says you also get the smell of your cleaning solvent. The cleaning solvent for me is actually a stronger smell. Christian's saying they dropped it for the Pro 2. There were issues with it falling off. Yeah, you do get the seal with it, but because it always falls off, I didn't even bother putting it on, mate. John Ashley says, is there a reason the cover of that colour of clear plastic? I think the reason that they're coloured, and I could be completely wrong with this, I think the reason that they're coloured is it stops any UV light getting through to the actual resin in the bath. So for me, it's not an issue. It's inside a kind of like a cupboard, if you like. It's out of the way. There's no direct sunlight in there. But if you had it like on a desk, if I had it on a desk in my office here, and I've got the curtains open, there's sunlight coming through. If you didn't have a filtered cover on it, you're starting to cure the resin inside the bath. From what I've read and from my research, that's basically what I think. Gareth Lewis says, one of the videos I watched suggested a plastic pickle tub for washing the prints. They come with a sort of cage. Yeah, you can do that as well, mate. All I would say is the more you handle stuff, the more well, one, it takes time. So if you're standing there kind of like sloshing it about, it's time that you're not doing something else. And the more you kind of sloshing it about, the more chance there is of splashing kind of chemicals around and kind of making a bit of a mess. For me, the reason I bought the wash and cure station was, I think it was £115, I think. I would have had to buy pickle tubs. I would have had to buy some kind of UV system. I would have had to try and set up some kind of contraption, be it like a nail varnish thing, or I would have had to kind of get like a UV lamp in a box. And there's all sorts of ways you can do it. For me personally, I just felt the ease of use, the convenience of it, the fact that it's a purpose-made thing was worth it for me personally. Like I said at the start, this is my money. I spent it myself. Nobody sent me it. I just think that actually for ease of process, from kind of putting resin in to getting a miniature out of the end or getting a product out of the end that you can then go and paint or display or whatever, I think for the money, I like what I bought. Yeah, Catan's saying about the covering blocking that. Johnson's got a fry basket. Shaggy says, put the lid back on. Put the lid back on. I don't know what we're talking about now. The other thing as well is it's actually got a lid sensor, so you can't set the UV light away while you've got the lid off as well. Christian says the Mercury looks like a better build than the Anycubic one that I've got. The curing vibrates the models of the plate when it rotates. To be honest, mate, I'd been looking at the Anycubic printers as well, and I saw the wash and cure for the Anycubic. I didn't realise that Elegoo did one till I was kind of looking online. I think that the Anycubic one might be a little bit cheaper, but at the time I think I just decided to kind of get all the same stuff together. Steve says, have you tried a water washable resin yet? I've heard good things. I've not tried it yet, mate. I've literally bought that one kind of resin. I've heard that it's a little bit easier to clean, but to be honest, I would still have to buy sort of like alcohol and stuff for other bits and pieces. And I've heard if you're doing solid prints, it works pretty well. If you're hollowing them out, if you're doing bigger prints, sometimes cracks a little bit, the water resin. But that's just second-hand information. I've not tried it for myself yet. Steve says, did the printer and the cleaner come separately? Yeah, they do, mate. I'll tell you exactly how much I paid for them. I paid for them all myself. The printer itself, I paid £280 for it from Amazon. It came on next day with Prime delivery. The water and the wash and cure system was £115. And then I bought things like the nitrile gloves. I bought the resin. I bought what else did I get? I had to get an extension lead, a power cable. I had to get, what was it? There was something else I ordered as well. Oh, filter papers as well. I ordered. All in all the bits and pieces, everything I bought came to, I think it was like £498. So let's say £500, and then I probably spent like another £10 on the baking trays, some kitchen towel, and the little plastic tub as well for washing the build plate. So it probably cost me about £510 all total for everything that's in there. The desk kind of thing, I built out of spare bits of wood that I had in my garage and things. So it's not cheap, I wouldn't say. It's Tiny War Games, thank you very much for the donation. Says good luck on your 3D journey. Thank you very much. The printers are inexpensive now. I mean, if you think about where they were in the past, the printers have really come down in price. So it's an affordable and accessible kind of hobby, if you like, or an accessible kind of tool. It's just that you must not forget that you have a lot of consumables to keep buying. Resin, whilst it's come down in price, I think I paid about £32, something like that, for 1 litre of resin, or 1,000 grams of resin, as it might be. And when you put it into the software, I'll show you the software and stuff in a bit. When you put your model into the software, that little miniature that I printed off, it said that it would cost me 15 pence worth of resin. So it doesn't cost much to make individual kind of things, but obviously you can't buy 15 pence worth of resin. You need to buy a bottle of the stuff. So it goes a long way, but there's like £30 odd a bottle, if you like. A bottle does go a long way, but it's always worth having a spare on hand, that kind of stuff. Nitrile gloves are expensive at the moment because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, so anything where people are kind of like protecting their hands and sort of cleaning with stuff, those kind of things go up in price as well. Spiderlords said that the support is the learning curve, to be honest. I've done loads of research again on the support and all that kind of stuff. I feel pretty confident. I'm not quick at it, but I feel confident that I know what I'm doing. I know how to kind of, there's a couple of different processes to be able to do them. And I think people say that if you get into 3D printing, you're getting into another hobby. And I would liken 3D printing in a very loose way. I would liken it to kind of buying an airbrush. So you don't have to buy an airbrush. You can quite happily use spray cans. You can quite happily paint by hand. In the same way with 3D printing, you don't have to kind of buy a 3D printer. You can just go to the shop and you can buy minis. If there's certain files you want, you can kind of, there's places who will print the files for you. You don't have to buy a 3D printer. However, if you want it to be a hobby, it can be. There's a whole world out there to explore. Sort of, you can even sculpt your own stuff. But if you just want to use it like a tool, like an airbrush for just priming and base coating stuff, if you want to just use it to print certain things off, you can buy or you can find STL files that don't need any support at all. You can find STL files from kind of Patreons and from like Kickstarters and things that are pre-supported. Sometimes they still need a bit of tweaking, but it's a lot more straightforward. If they're pre-supported, you almost don't need to do anything. You kind of put it onto the USB file, load it into your printer, and away you go. And then you can buy files that aren't supported, and you'll have to do the support yourself. So there's different levels of accessibility to this, I would say. I'll show you some stuff in a little while as well. Katan says, if you want D&D miniatures and you're just starting, I highly recommend searching for Bright Minis. It does loads of supportless models. Load up the build plate and press print easy. Yeah, that's just kind of what I was saying. That's good timing, mate. Busey said, if you wear glasses already, then don't buy safety specs. Yeah, I suppose, mate. It depends if you want to get resin on the glasses that you're wearing. The only thing I would say is normal glasses are not safety specs, so they won't cover kind of the sides of your eyes or anything like that. Personally, I mean, people have got kind of like visors and stuff like that from COVID stuff. Me personally, I would recommend wearing some kind of safety equipment. But if you've got glasses, I don't know what the material of the glasses are like, sort of the sides of it. I don't know if it's going to scratch the lenses trying to get resin off, anything like that. Personally, for me, I would just buy the kind of safety specs. They're really cheap. They go over the top of your glasses. 3D Bruno, hello to you as well. Marcus is saying a suggestion on removing support pieces. Make sure your clippers or a hobby knife extremely sharp. The other thing as well is what you can do is you can put them under hot water or kind of like warm water, and that'll soften them up as well. What I would say is if you do the supports correctly, they should almost just kind of peel away. The ones that I did absolutely just kind of peeled away there. 3D Bruno says remove the supports before or after curing. Personally, for me, I removed them before curing. The reason for that is that I didn't want them to harden up. They're going to harden once they're cured, and the supports were done in such a way that they almost just peeled away. I didn't even have to use the clippers for most of it. They just kind of peeled off. So I did it before curing. So after washing, but before curing. Chris says, what kind of things are you going to print? How are your CAD skills with Blender? I've not done anything with Blender at all, mate. I've done no sculpting. I don't know where to start with that. It's something in the future I might look at. But the things I want to print are the things like kind of like the busts and stuff. So this behind me here was a gift from Christian for Christmas. This is a Hulk. Obviously, it's primed in black, so you're not going to be able to see it very well. But this is a resin print. It came in about 3 or 4 parts, I think. And it's this kind of stuff, like just display pieces, really. I mean, I will be doing miniatures. I think I'll be looking for stuff. I'll be doing bits of scatter terrain. You know, if I'm doing like filming for a game or something like that, I'm trying to build up like to make the tables look interesting. I don't necessarily just want to be buying big pieces of terrain. I want like little bits of scatter stuff, bits of like a thematic. Those are the kind of things that I'll be printing as well. But things like the busts, and I also want to at some point try and kind of make some like objective markers, like BlackJack Legacy branded kind of objective markers to give them away to Patreons, that kind of stuff as well. So those are the kind of things I'll be looking at. That's just jumped well ahead there as well, so apologies if I've missed any of your comments out there. Mark says, my wife moans at me for watching videos on my phone while taking a dump. 3D printing while taking a dump would take the morning to a whole new level. Yeah, you'd get a very bad back, mate, trying to sit on that toilet while you're doing that, that's for sure. Libra says there's a lower cost than I was expecting. Cool. Busey says my Elegoo is probably 6 foot away from my head when I sleep. Not noticed any side effects so far. Yeah, I mean, this arrived on Saturday. I did my first print on Sunday, so it's not like I've got lots of experience of this. But what I'm giving you is my experience as somebody that has kind of sat on the fence for quite some time, weighed up the options, decided what was best for me, and then basically set up like a specific area. And I'll come on to why I've kind of set it up as I have a little bit later. Marcus says I could smell it in a 5,000 square foot warehouse shop from just about anywhere in the shop while I was working, but would not get within 20 feet of the room. It's funny. I mean, I guess it depends upon sort of, if you're leaving the lid off or anything like that, obviously the smell of the resin is going to be a lot stronger. I'll be honest, I could smell it when if the door had been closed and I walked in, I could smell it. But I couldn't smell it. It didn't like kind of fill the house. It didn't like smell it. I mean, there's still resin left in that bath. I've got the door open because the camera and stuff's set up in the doorway. I can't smell it sitting here. Paul said, from what I can tell, the fumes from 3D printers are not harmful for most materials. I saw someone measure air quality for various prints and it's ABS filament and FDM printers that's harmful. I've just been watching something or reading about that. That actually like FDM printers, which are the ones that basically the plastic printers, if you like, the fumes that come off that apparently are just as harmful, if not more harmful, and yet nobody seems to take any precautions with that kind of stuff. Bill Blight says some LED bulbs put off full spectrum and do put out some UV, so even inside can start to cure. Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. Yeah, that's probably not a bad shout actually, even if it's inside. But that's why the covers are left on there as well. So Busey said I find the sound quite soothing. Andy says, if you're happy with what you've spent, that's all that matters. Yeah, like I say, mate. So what I will say is one of the reasons why I went for what I went for. So some of the things that I kind of took into kind of account and I weighed up were the cost of the printer itself. So there are printers which use LCD screens. Essentially, the way a resin printer works, imagine like a mobile phone screen, and basically it shows like a negative image, if you like, of the thing that you want to print. So it'll block out kind of, how can I explain this? It'll block out the areas where you don't want UV light to shine through, and the areas that are left open, UV light will shine through that LCD screen and basically cure the resin. And then basically it moves up a little bit, the image changes and it cures again, and it moves up a little bit and the image changes, and that's how you build up the layers in a different way. So the old like printers, the original resin printers, things like the Elegoo Mars, for example. I'll say Elegoo just because those are the ones that I looked at and researched more. But Elegoo Mars, the original one, worked with like an adapted mobile phone screen, for want of a better phrase. That is the older technology slightly. There's a slightly newer technology after that, which is the one that I've got, which is a mono screen. So mine is a 2K mono screen. 2K is the resolution. And mono screen means it's not an LCD screen that uses coloured pixels like this. It's kind of like it's like black and white, if you like monochrome screen. What this means is the life of the screen actually lasts a lot longer. The screens are seen as a consumable part. You will have to change them at some point. I think from the top of my head, an LCD screen lasts about, I'll take these numbers with a pinch of salt because I might be guessing at a minute. Let's say it lasts 1,000 hours. The monochrome screen, the 2K monochrome screen, will last for about 4,000 hours. It's also more efficient as well, so it means that actually you can expose for less time, which means that it'll probably print about twice as fast as the older generation. So instead of it lasting 4 times as long, it'll last 8 times as long, for example. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't go for like the original kind of the older technology. I went for something slightly newer. There are now 4K screens as well, 4K monochrome screens. They have a bigger build plate, so you can get more stuff in there, or the volume inside the printer is physically bigger, and they are faster again because the 4K screens can basically give it a sharper image as well, and they're more efficient again. The reason I didn't go for that was, one, they're pretty much out of stock everywhere at the moment because obviously it's new stuff. They haven't long been out. They're quite hard to get a hold of at the moment, especially things like the Elegoo Satin, which is the new one. The other reason was they were like 3 times the price of what I paid. So I paid £280 for this one. You can get an original Elegoo Mars for about £180. The Elegoo Satin was, for all the list prices, meant to be about £600, I think, or £480, something like that. They're selling it online for about £750 because there's just none to be had at the minute. So for me, I was kind of toying between, do I get the what's happened here? Do I get the one that I got, or do I wait and get the more expensive newer model? And for me, the speed wasn't really an issue for me because it's not exactly like I'm not kind of printing for a business. I don't need to churn them out fast to make money. The only thing that the 4K higher quality, I'm really happy with the quality of the prints that this one puts out. I think they're more than good enough for the stuff that I need. So for me, the biggest difference would be the size of the build plate and being able to fit more things on the build plate or make bigger stuff. And for the type of stuff that I'm making, I would probably utilize that bigger build plate once in 100 prints. I probably would never justify the extra expense. And also because this is the first time I'm doing it, I might buy one, find that I absolutely hate it, it's far too fiddly, and feel like I've wasted my money. I'd rather feel like I wasted less money if it was going to be a problem than because I still would have had to buy the resin, I still would have had to buy some kind of washing station, I still would have had to buy sort of gloves and everything else. So that would have bumped the price up to nearer £1,000. So for me, that was the reasons why I kind of decided to kind of go down that route, and why I decided not to kind of plump for the more expensive, the newer ones. Let's have a look. Can also check your spray primer is compatible with your resin. Check on a small scrap first. Yeah, I have. I've primed resin models that people have sent me using the same resin as well, and all's been fine. So that's no issues with that one. Anabolic says, if I were to get one, it'd be for terrain. I don't need to add more miniatures to my mountain of unpainted shame. Yeah, and to be honest, it's not just for miniatures. I think that there's a number of different things you can use them for. But I would certainly kind of see you need to know what you want to print before you dive in with that kind of stuff. Christian sharing all the different links and stuff. Thank you very much, Mace. John saying, look forward to seeing the results of your printing efforts. Thank you very much. I'll share them off as soon as I kind of do some stuff. James says, maybe a dumb question. Why isn't every model supported if you need to do them? That's probably a good time to show you. Let me just get this up. And if I switch across to this one, I'm assuming, is the microphone off? I can't see the microphone working. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do me a favor, folks. Give me a thumbs up if the microphone's working, because it doesn't look like it's working on my side of the screen here. Let me know. I can hear you. I think the software's playing up in the background here. I tell you what I'll do. Yeah, I think the software's playing up in the background. It's not showing me any of the audio stuff. If you're all telling me it's working, I'll crack on. Right. So what we've got here is this is Judge Dredd, and this is like a resin bust, or it will be a resin bust if I print it. This is like a bust type of thing. This was a free file online. I didn't have to pay for this one. It's a free file, and this shows you kind of what it looks like. So this is the software is called Chitterbox. You can see in the corner here. And this is basically how we break this down so that the printer can understand it. And when we're talking about sort of supported models and things, what if you look at it from underneath like this? Let me just move it up and zoom in a bit. If you look at it from underneath, what you don't want is anything just hanging in mid-air. So if I take this all the way down to the bottom, let me just, actually let me get the base off there. So what you'll see here, this is basically one layer that the model will print. And if I turn it like this, these are each individual layer that will print as the model builds up. But because they're printing on top of each other, it doesn't need anything supported. Everything just kind of builds up, and it's using the layer underneath it. Don't forget as well, resin printing, it kind of gets done upside down. So let me just whoops, I'll do it the other way, sorry, like that. So that's how the printer is basically printing your layer. So it's basically curing a layer at a time. So as long as it is gripping onto the previous layer, it doesn't need any supports. Okay, if I open up a new one, and this is the one that I just printed off that you saw next door. This is obviously what a model with supports looks like. Let me just, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll rotate it around. I will center it, and I'll scale it up. Oh, no, I don't want to scale it up for the support. So what you can see here is all of these grey lines here are essentially the supports. And if I flip it upside down and zoom in, you will see that as it goes up. So if I go to that layer there, for example, you see here that basically you've got the bottoms of the legs which are printing on top of each other. But when you get to the point when it wants to print this sword, it's hanging in the middle of nowhere. It's hanging in midair. There is nothing to adhere it to. So this is why you have to oops. This is just just let me go back. There we go. For some reason, I think that's just the software just crashed there while I was doing it. Of course it did. Basically, you can't have things just being printing in the middle of thin air, because if it's printing in thin air, then essentially what happens is it ends up printing on the FEP, the plastic bed. So you can't do that basically. So that's why you need to support some things and not others. I'm going to have to read the chat off my phone now, because it looks like that just crashed everything there. Yeah, Christian saying it crashes from time to time. Is the sound still okay, folks? The software here is not showing any movement on the audio. So yes, everybody's saying I am the law. So yeah, that is essentially how it that is essentially how the software works. What you then do is you then send that software into what's called slicing, and it basically breaks down the details into individual layers, so that when the printer comes to print it, it prints those layers individually. And that's a kind of like a quick once around really of how that works. So let me just I'll turn that off. I've got no idea why everything, software and stuff, seems to be playing up tonight, but we'll crack on. I think Chitterbox has just crashed on my laptop there while we're doing that. Yeah. So what I will do, of course, I tell you what, I need to let me. I've got some notes that I wanted to read, which are on my laptop, obviously, and now my laptop has crashed, so I will. I'll just restart that one while we're talking. Question there. Stephen Dan says, how have you found removing your prints from the base plate? I've heard people have some difficulties. The original ones that I did, which were the kind of, so the first print I did failed. I had a failed print on it. I think it was more to do with user error kind of thing. So I was a bit nervous. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll print the test files that they ask you to print. So that's what I did. I went back and I did that. And they worked absolutely fine. There was no issues. I'm just shutting down some stuff in the background here, because I'm having a few problems on the background. They printed no problem, but they were absolutely nailed to the build plate. They were really, really hard to get off. So what I did was I got the scraper and I just literally tapped the end of the scraper with a hammer, and it almost kind of like shocked them off. It got underneath and basically like broke them away. So that was absolutely fine. When I come to print the miniature, that one just peeled off, absolutely no problem. I got the scraper, the metal scraper, just underneath it, just eased under it, and it lifted off, no problem. So I think it depends. You can change the exposure time when it's making those kind of first few layers to try and get it to stick to the print bed, if you like, to the build plate. And if you expose it for too long, it'll be absolutely nailed down. So, I think we've got some, right. I think I can get to my notes now. Here we go. I can get to the notes I wanted to do. So, Christian says, if you save a supported file as an STL, you can then scale up the STL after you've supported it. However, this also scales up the supports. Yeah, I thought that must be the case, mate, as well. Steve says, is that software you can make your own files for printing? No, mate, you need to sculpt them in sculpting software first and then import that 3D model into that software, and then that software will convert it, allow you to make supports and things and convert it into something your printer can do. So yeah, so there's loads of stuff that you kind of, if you're just starting out like me, I would assume things like sort of sculpting and that kind of stuff's maybe like the next level. What you essentially want to be doing is being able to take a 3D model, take it into some software like Chitterbox. There are other ones available as well, other slicing software. Take the 3D model in, be able to support it if it needs support, or if it's not already pre-supported or it's a supportless model. Be able to do that, and then be able to export that to your memory stick to be able to give to your printer and get a successful print. That's basically the first stages. If you're then trying to get into 3D sculpting, there's separate 3D sculpting software that you will go and sculpt something with, and then take that 3D file, that STL file, and import it into that software for making it into 3D printed files. Busey saying, what was the exposure time you had on that? I forget now, mate. I think the bottom plate was 35 seconds for the bottom, and it might have been 8 seconds per layer, I think, from the top of my head. Luke says, when you say it failed, what had gone wrong with it? So it was the first one I'd done, mate, when I took the sticky plastic off the bottom of the FEP film. So the FEP film is the clear film that's in the bottom of the resin tray. It comes with like a protective layer. There was a lot of static on it. I could feel the hairs on the back of my hand kind of like sort of like standing on end and stuff. And I wiped it down. I could feel the static on the cloth and things. I think what happened was, and from reading up about it, sometimes your first print can basically, the static of that film, or the fact that it is so kind of sticky, can actually stick to the exposure bed, if you like, to the glass bed underneath to the screen. And so what happens is the resin, the cured resin doesn't pull off on the build plate. It sticks to the bottom of the bed, and that's basically what happened. I then had to clean it down But then what I did was I poured the resin back into the bottle. I cleaned the FEP down, which then seemed to get rid of obviously all of the static and stuff. And when I put it on and did the next one, it worked like a dream. And then I went back and printed the original file again without changing anything. And again, it worked like a dream. So when I say it was user error, I think I probably should have cleaned the film before I actually put the bottom tray on the bed. Could be completely wrong, but when I've been reading up about it afterwards, it seems a lot of people have a failed print with their first one, and that's one of the reasons why you get a failed print. Tony saying, I think I'll stick to cooking as my second hobby. Bill Blythe says you can use pretty much anything that makes 3D models, CAD, Blender, Pro. Yeah, basically, if you can get an STL file, a 3D model of pretty much anything, you can then use this software to break it down. Bloggy saying one of the benefits of unsupported models is not all supports will be able to work with all printers or all settings. Yeah, I think it's different. One of the other reasons why I decided to go for the Elegoo one is there is a massive community online. Elegoo seemed to be really good with customer service. From what I've read and from what I've understood, they seem to have a good availability of spare parts should anything need to be replaced in the future. And there's a good community online as well of people who are offering to help each other and kind of help. I'm sure other printers have kind of good communities as well. The people I know who have printers also tend to have Elegoo ones, so I know for a fact the people I'm asking for help is also they're going to have at least some settings or some advice based upon real world experience as well. Steve says, can you print multiple models pieces at a time? You certainly can, mate. As long as you can fit them on that build plate, you can print multiple models. In fact, if I can get this to work again, I'll just be able to show you that now, because obviously it's crashed. So I'll reopen it and we'll go back again. So if let me scale this down a bit. Right, if I switch back across to this screen, yeah. So what we've got on here then is I've just scaled down that Judge Dredd model. If I pop that there, and then if I think it's open a project. Let's go to desktop 3D files. Let's open that one as well. So you can see there, oops, it's put both files onto the print bed. So in theory, if I wanted to print both of them, I could print them both at the same time. If I want to, yeah. So essentially what you do is once you've got your settings, you need to slice the models, and what that does is it essentially breaks it down into layers, and this is the image that will show up through the so the white bits are where the UV light passes through and cues the resin, and the black bits is where it stops the UV from going through. So you can see there how we've got the different layers, and basically over the time, that's where it'll be. Here, it'll tell you how long it'll take. So it'll take 6 hours and 12 minutes to print. That's just because of the height of it. One layer will take the same amount of time, no matter how much is on that print bed. But the higher the model is, the taller the model is, the longer it'll take to print. It gives you a price here, so if you put in how much you paid for your resin, it'll tell you how much it would cost in resin to actually build them. So this one will cost me £1.02. What I could do with this one is hollow it out and make it cheaper again. And then these are some of the exposure times of different bits and pieces. That it's obviously kind of remembered them from settings that are in there. So yeah, so what you would do is you would save that. That would save it as a file, and that would actually then be able to save that to your USB stick, and be a printable file. So let me just quit that. Right. So what I wanted to talk about was 5 things that I've learned really from getting started with 3D printing, and things I like now I physically have one after thinking about it for so long, and now I've printed some successful files. What have I learned, and what would I pass on as kind of knowledge to folks who are on the fence thinking about getting started? The first one I would say is make sure you're fully prepared before you start messing about with a printer, before you even buy a printer. Think about all of the consumable stuff, that like things like resin and like IPA and stuff. Think about all the safety things that you need to take into consideration. Have them all ready before you start. So if your new printer arrives, get everything ready. What you don't want to be doing is scrambling around in the middle. You don't want to kind of like lift the lid off your printer to get the resin thing out and then go, oh, I haven't got any gloves. Where's my gloves? I need to go looking for them. And the scraper's in a different room. All that kind of stuff. Get everything ready, get all your cloths, get everything done. Think about your work area, having to catch things like drips and stuff, and anticipate how much space you're actually going to need to actually be able to kind of carry that out. And just because the printer fits in the area you're thinking of doesn't mean that's all you need. Factor in all of these costs and like the workflow of taking it off the build plate, cleaning it down, curing it. Think about that as a kind of an entire workflow, because just because it fits on your desk next to your computer doesn't mean you've got space to kind of do everything that you need. The next one I would say is to think about your step-by-step workflow. And what I mean by your workflow is, what do you need to do at each stage to be able to kind of get successful prints ready to be usable? So make sure you fully research what you do at each stage. What you don't want to do is just go, well, I think I once saw a video where they just took a scraper and they cleaned the bottom of the FAP to clean any bits off and stuff. You don't want to be kind of going in half-arsed about it, really. You want to know, before you do anything, You want to know what you're going to do. It's a bit like taking an airbrush and saying, well, I think the air pressure should be like this, or I've seen them stripping an airbrush down before because it was clogged up. I think I'll just pull everything to bits. You don't want to do anything like that without kind of researching and understanding what you need to do. Also about your workflow, if you think about what you're going to do everything step by step, there are some things that you want to have gloves on your hands because you don't want to get resin on your hands, and there are some things you don't want to have gloves on because you don't want to be touching touch screens on your printer and your cure station with kind of dirty gloves. You don't want to be lifting off the UV covers off your printer with dirty gloves, or you're going to get resin fingerprints over everywhere. You don't want to be sort of like handling sort of like tools and things like clippers. You don't necessarily be handling clippers without any gloves on if you were using them with gloves on last time. So think about it step by step, how you'll kind of lay your area out to allow you to be able to kind of do that. The third one I would say is that print failures will happen. Everybody will get print failures at some point. Know how to deal with them before you start trying to kind of deal with them, because you can cause yourself a lot of headaches if you start digging away at the because if you get a failed print, generally what happens is you get resin stuck to the FEP film, which is the clear film in the bottom of the resin tray. You'll get stuff stuck to that, and a lot of people's first thought is, I'll just scrape it off. If you puncture through that, you're going to have resin pouring out all over the place. You're going to have to replace it as well, and it's doable. You get 2 spare FEP films with the print I bought, so it is a consumable part. You do have to replace them at some point, but you don't want to have to replace them because you've just poked a scraper through them. There's ways to deal with failed prints, so make sure you research that before you just kind of like dive in. The fourth one is, if you're thinking about purchasing a printer, have ideas of what you want to print. What do you really want the printer for? Because if you think, I just want to print stuff, well, that's fine. But what you'll do is you'll end up with a new printer sitting there waiting to go, and you'll be going, right, what shall I print? I don't. There's so much stuff out there. I don't really know. If you're really serious about wanting to pick up a printer, think about picking up a couple of files, even if they're free ones. Get some stuff ready. Maybe even kind of download the software and learn about how to do support and things, and have some stuff ready to go before you buy the printer. Otherwise, you'll buy the printer, you'll do your test bit, and then it'll probably sit there for a week or 2 weeks because you don't know what to print on it. So have stuff prepped, ready to go kind of thing. And the fifth one is something I touched on earlier in the stream as well, is don't always think you need the absolute latest technology, because I waited and I watched every new iteration and new development and every new kind of sort of add-on of everything that's come out. And even now, there's stuff coming down the line in the future where I'm thinking, oh, should I have waited and got that one kind of thing, or I was before I kind of dove in. Understand what you actually want the printer for. What's the purpose of it for you? Because just because it can do 10 more things, there might be 10 things that you will never ever do. Like I explained before about kind of like getting one with a bigger build plate. Yes, it's nice, but is it like 3 times the cost nice? Is it really worth that extra cost? If all you're going to be printing is the odd miniature here and there, or kind of bits and pieces. Yeah, how often will you use those new features? So those are 5 things I would say. If you're on the fence, if you're really thinking about getting a 3D printer, a resin printer for the first time, or if you're just about to sort of push the buy now trigger kind of thing, just think about those 5 things, because if you can answer them, you're probably ready to kind of to go and buy one. But if you don't know what you want to print, and you don't really know what kind of printer you want because you don't know what you want to print, maybe now's not the time to kind of spend a big chunk of money on it. So that was the kind of like the top 5 tips I was trying to think of. Let's have a look. See if I can get some chat going on my laptop again now. Let me pop the chat out. Here we go. Right, here we go. Bill says, I've got no idea where we're up to. I'm just going to dive in here somewhere. Tiny War Game says, the detail on these things can print is amazing. I printed Gasland's model with springs for suspension, very detailed. It's amazing. I mean, like I said, I haven't got the latest 4K printer or something like that, and I don't think I really need it. I don't think I really need the extra detail. The detail of the stuff that comes off this one is more than good enough for what I need it for. Peter saying, you know, after all this technobabble, I'm probably ordering a good, reliable Perry miniature Zulus. That's exactly what I mean, mate, about understand what you want it for. If you just want to print off a couple of minis, almost the same as like what you can buy in a shop, it's going to be cheaper to buy those minis from the shop. There's no point spending 500 quid to print off, like, oh, I've saved £30 on buying these minis. You haven't saved £30. You've spent £500 to print those minis. That's what you've done. So if you just want the odd miniature here and there, maybe 3D printing's not for you. So understand why what you're going to use it for. What do you want it for before you then go, I just want it to, like, before you kind of dive in. Luke says there's no reason for not loading up the bed like this, right? As long as you have enough resin, you can fill the bed up, right? Yeah, absolutely, mate. If the reason I've kind of printed one miniature is because I just wanted to make sure everything was working, really. But if you go on to one of these Kickstarters or you subscribe to somebody's Patreon and you're getting like sort of 20, 30 miniatures a month or something, by all means, load up the print bed. Give them a little bit of space beside each other and stuff, just so they're not kind of like overlapping with each other and everything's kind of getting intermingled. But yeah, just load the bed up, mate. That's one of the benefits of having a bigger build plate. Not just that you can print a physically bigger model on it, but you can print more models in one go. So let's say a print takes 4 hours because of the height of the miniature, if you like. It'll take 4 hours. Let's say the tallest miniature you're going to print is going to take 4 hours. It'll take everything 4 hours to print that is that height or lower. So the more you can fit on, you're making more kind of prints per 4 hours, if you like, if that's the case. Luke says, is there programs to break down a model into smaller chunks to print out into pieces? Normally what happens, mate, is that the sculptors will, if they're big models, they'll normally give 2 different files. One as a complete file and one as in smaller pieces as well. If you're wanting to break it down, you're essentially getting into sculpting at that point and being able to kind of break it down yourself, I believe. Steve says, have you tried to apply and support yourself yet? Could you show us how that works? I haven't tried. I do know how it works, but I haven't applied any myself yet, mate. Essentially, you can use an auto support, which will try to kind of like support them mainly, and then you can adapt those auto supports. But essentially, what you're looking for what's called islands, and islands are those bits just kind of like floating out in the middle of nowhere that have no support to print. So if halfway up the model, there's an elbow kind of hanging out. So if I was the 3D model, what I'm standing like at is, as I printed up my stomach and up my chest, it would be absolutely fine. But when it come to print where my elbows are, they would just be basically hanging out in free air, so they would fail. So that is the point where you would need to kind of place supports here, and then it would kind of print from there. So all of like underneath my arm here would just be one big thing that's just hanging in the middle of nowhere. So you'd have to support that. So it's like this model came in pieces, but if I was to kind of print that as it is there, when it gets to this layer, that the fingers and stuff are just hanging out in the middle of nowhere. So those fingers would need to be supported. The bottom of the arm would need to be supported. But underneath, he's kind of like round his chest and round the side here is being layered upon other stuff. So yeah, that's essentially how it works. Mark says, can you lay the figure down on the bed for quicker printing? You can, mate. So instead of printing it like that, you could print it like that. The reason that you might not want to do that is because if you need support underneath, you're going to have lots of support marks all over the back of your model. Where if you print it like that, all of your support marks will be underneath it and like in areas where you don't see so much. So for example, the last thing you'd want to do is place it with the face of the model facing down to the print bed, because then you have loads of supports all over that you would have to clip off. So there's a number of different ways to do it. What you essentially want to do is to try and kind of do it so the really detailed part, the face and stuff, never has any kind of support on it, or very minimal supports. So like sort of printing it at an angle like that, like 45 degrees if you like, I do that, is probably better than kind of printing it like that. Otherwise the entire back's going to be kind of covered in support marks. Steve says, what's the size of the build plate you have? Height, width and depth for larger terrain tanks? I can't remember off the top of my head, mate, if I'm completely honest. If you're looking to build really big kind of terrain things, the PLA, the plastic kind of 3D printers are still the kind of the best for those bigger stuff. You do unfortunately get kind of layer lines in it, the kind of ridges in that plastic stuff. You can sand them, you can kind of fill them, that kind of stuff. But for physical size of models, plastic printers, if you like, or PLA printers are still probably the best thing. You can buy bigger resin printers that can do that. You can get files where it breaks down, so if it was a building, for example, it might print it into 4 wall sections separately and be able to stick them together. But I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head, it's something like about 150 by 80 kind of square and 150 high, something like that, I think. Yeah, Tiny's Wargame saying you can tilt models, yes. And Christian saying there about the support scars. Bill Blight says, if you have room on your plate, a 45-degree angle seems to work best for minis. Not always, mate. I've been reading a lot about that, and it's all to do with overhangs and stuff like that. It depends upon the miniature, really. There's no right way. There's just ways that work. So one thing I've kind of learned is you need to kind of mess around and you need to find out for yourself, I think, over time. It's one of the reasons a lot of people go for pre-supported models with like Patreons and things like that. Yeah, Tiny Wargames is saying 140 by 80. That seems to ring a bell, mate. Yeah, I thought it was around that one. Geek Gaming saying, hello Luke, mate, how you doing? It says 3D printing is more routine and a process, just finding your pattern, so to speak. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I was talking about, kind of having a workflow. It's why I kind of, before I kind of put things in place in the room where I wanted them, I almost kind of stood there and almost like sort of acted out what I'd be doing to see where everything would be. Like, so if I take this cover off, where am I going to put it while I'm working? Have I got space to put it down somewhere? Right, I know where I'm going to put that cover. I'm going to take it off without any gloves on because I don't want to put dirty marks on the side. Then I'm going to put my gloves on. Then I'm going to take the build plate off and I'm going to scrape it off, like scrape the build off. Where am I going to do this? Right, I'm going to have a tray down here with a bit of kind of kitchen towel in. That's where I'm going to scrape it off. Right, now I've got resin on my hands. What am I going to do with I've got resin on the scraper blade. I've got resin on my gloves from the build plate, and I've now got a model lying in the bottom of a tray here. What's the next thing I need to do? So, all right, well, and that's why I need to have that little Tupperware tub with some IP in it, so I can put the build plate into there to be able to clean that, because that'll be the next job. I'll need a spray bottle to be in a little brush to kind of clean down the scraper and put that to one side. And then I'll need the lid off the cure station because I'm going to put this into the basket to put. So it's almost like thinking through the steps. And what that allowed me to do was it allowed me to lay out the work area in the right process flow. And I'll be honest, it's because I took the time to do that, even to the point where I put everything in place before I even drilled holes for power cables and stuff to come through the bottoms of the desk and stuff, and where I put things on shelves. It's just a process, and if you can get into like a flow of a process, it works really well. It's not that difficult, but it's just being able to think like the next couple of steps ahead. What do I need to do? At what point should I take my gloves off so that I don't get bits of resin everywhere, but then I'm not touching anything that's going to kind of contaminate stuff. I honestly, you find your groove, you find your pattern, if you like. Bill says you'll learn to do a lot of things one-handed, one with a glove and one without. I saw videos like kind of doing that. I might do in the future, but at the minute it's for me there's more chance of me kind of cross-contaminating stuff, I think, that way. Beauty saying don't use the clippers on the supports. I think you have to use the clippers with the supports, mate. If you can't get them off, if you've done your supports and they're a bit tough to get off, you have to use your clippers to get them off. Steve says, next idea will be print sizes. Does the sculpting software all you figure out the size of the printed scale? So what the software will do is it'll tell you how high the model is when you print it off, and you can scale that up and down. So in fact, let me open that software again, and we'll see if I can. I'll see if I can show you, because when I import a file into it. So let me switch across to here. So if I import a file, so if I open the Judge Dredd, so you'll see it come in. It's way too big as it comes in for my build plate. So for the size of my printer, you can see the red areas there. So these red bits means that it won't print because it's physically outside the area. So first thing I can do is I can kind of rotate the model around. So I'll rotate it so there's more of it on the build plate. So we can see now that the bottom of the build plate fits. But if you have a look, these are sticking out and the printer physically isn't that big. So what we can do is we can, let me go to move, sorry. I can center it on the bed. So it's centered. And then we can go to scale. And I can either scale to fit, and then that'll make it as big as possible. Or we can start. So it's telling me here, the model in the Z-axis, which is the height, is 198.85 millimeters tall. So as I start to bring that down, like if I want to make a 40 millimeter version of that, I can go into there, 40 mil. So I've now got a 40 millimeter high Judge Dredd bust from bottom to top. So that's how you can kind of that's how you can scale stuff down. So that's how that works. Let me get my chat back up again. Bill says, treat resin like you would bleach. You don't want it on your clothes. You don't want it on your skin. You don't want it over everything. That's a good methodology, I would say. Is it dangerous? It's not acid. It's not going to kind of like, you're not going to lose a finger if you dip your finger in a kind of thing. But it is going to burn if you don't wash it off. Treat it like bleach is a good way. I've got like an apron that I put on over just so that any splashes or anything wouldn't go on my clothes. Like I don't look like I'm ready to kind of like go into like a quarantine zone, but it's just stuff that if I was dealing with kind of chemicals that I wouldn't want on me, I kind of take some precautions. That's all. Axe and Axe, see you next time, mate. Christian said, highly recommend my mini factory for STL files. There's plenty on there for free as well as paid and pre-supported. Yeah, a lot of companies now seem to be using my mini factory. Even so, what companies will do is a lot of places have a Patreon where you pay $10, $15, $20 a month, and they will give you new models every month. Normally quite a lot. So if you find a designer or a company that you like, you can support them every month. Or if you just find a set of files that you like, you can support them for that month, get those files, and then cancel your Patreon and just kind of keep those files. What people tend to do is, maybe 6 months down the line, after the Patreons have had those files and stuff, they might start to sell them on my mini factory. And so if you go to my mini factory, you can sometimes just buy sets of files, individual models, or kind of like a bundle of like a range of models and stuff like that. That's probably what I'll do to start with, picking and choosing the bits and pieces that I really want. I don't know enough of the different kind of Patreons and people at the moment to decide which ones I want to support. I'll kind of keep an eye on stuff month by month and look out for certain ones. But the ranges change each month. So one month you might like the stuff, the next month not so much. Bill saying, for minis, check out Hero Forge. Hero Forge is a place where you can actually design your own mini on their site. And then you can either buy the miniature or you can buy the file to print off yourself as well. Steve said, I don't really want a printer. I want the ability to access the tech. Where can I find a local printer? Look on Facebook groups, mate. There's a lot of like printer shops kind of starting to pop up now. Geek Gaming Scenics is getting pre-supported models and looking at how they're supported is how I learned to support. There is that as well, mate. Because obviously you can get online and somebody can talk you through it. There's loads of videos, but there's nothing like learning for yourself and understanding it. But seeing a file that has been well supported and prints perfectly, and then actually going back and looking at it to understand why they've done what they've done is a great way to learn. Scott says, Loot Miniatures have some awesome models to print. Yeah, they do, mate. Loot Miniatures, Loot support a lot of different channels doing a lot of sponsored stuff. They seem to be all over the place, mate. Christian saying Hero Forge is okay. Size is true at 28mm. Great if there's something specific, yeah. Luke saying supporting minis is the biggest learning curve. 2K printers are more than enough. The mono option is nice for the speed and how long the screen lasts. That was exactly the reason I decided not to hang on for the Saturn, mate. The extra build plate size for the stuff I'll print it's a nice to have, and I'll use it once in 100 times. It wasn't worth the kind of like 3 times the extra price. Bluggy's off for dinner, night mate. Thanks for popping in. John's saying, my wife has just informed me there is the 3D printers available for use at our local library. I didn't realise that. Yeah, libraries are definitely adapting these days, mate. Christian says, it's why I got the Frozen Sonic Mighty 4K. I wanted to print dragons. Yeah, there is that, mate. I must admit, I looked at the is it the Mono X? I think was the other one I was looking at as well. But yeah, price was just prohibitive really for getting in for the first time I'd ever printed anything. Peter says, we have a 3D printer store in the next town. You can go and get your stuff printed if you really want something, and I don't bother. Not worth another hobby for me. Like I say, it doesn't have to be another hobby. Like if you think about, like, so if I've got a file prepared, ready to go, if I've bought a pre-supported file, it'll literally take me 5 minutes to go into there, pop the USB stick in, top the resin up, and press play, and then I just leave it. Let's say it prints overnight. I get up the next morning, I take it off the print bed, I wash it, I put it in that little wash station, wash it for 5 minutes, I take it out, I put it in on that little spinning disc, cure it for 5 minutes, and it's done. It doesn't have to be a complete new hobby. It can be a hobby if you're really into kind of wanting to do all the support yourself, if you're wanting to design your own miniatures, if you want to do something a bit special, if you're wanting to make it a hobby. It doesn't have to be a hobby though. So for all it might take 10 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is to print something, I'm not sitting there physically waiting for it to happen. It's almost the equivalent of press purchase online when you press play and then wait for the next day to be delivered. And when you get resin miniatures through the post, what's the first thing you do before you stick them together is you clean them anyway. And with the wash and cure station that I bought, it's just really kind of handy. It's not like I'm opening tubs all over the place and having to do like sort of having to lay out a big area and be careful not to spray stuff around. It's less manual. I'm literally dropping it in and pressing kind of wash, and then I come back 5 minutes later and take it out and put it in and press cure and come back 5 minutes later. It can be a hobby, but it doesn't have to be. Vijay says, one thing you do want to think about loading up the build plate or printing larger solid models is suction force. Yes, so there is that as well. That basically the bigger the area that you're printing on the bed will basically it cures on the print bed, but it's stuck to the FEP film as well. So as it pulls away, you hear like a little click almost as it's kind of pulling against that tight film. If you print a massive big kind of sort of area, there is that suction force of pulling against the film. The last thing you want to do is tear that film and have resin pouring out everywhere. So it is something to think about. But as long as you've got like kind of sort of enough gaps in it, you're not just printing one massive kind of square block, if you like. Dave says a program called Mesh Mixer can cut minis into section. I didn't know that, mate. That's something new for me. Bodyguard of Lies says, I got one a couple of months back, and my advice is grab some of the cheap gloves like they have at the petrol station, because you'll go through gloves at a rate of knots. Yeah, I mentioned that before, mate. I mean, unfortunately, at the minute, you need sort of decent gloves. You want to be using things like nitrile gloves, really, just because you don't want the gloves to react with the resin itself. And the problem is at the minute with the pandemic stuff is that they're very expensive because people are buying them for like going shopping in and stuff like that. So the price has gone up. It's the same with the price of IPA as well has gone up because it's the main kind of component of hand sanitizer and stuff. So those kind of raw materials, the consumable stuff, are a bit more pricey than they used to be. But they're not like sort of like 40 quid for a box of gloves, if you like. Bill says, learn to hollow and put drain holes will keep you from having sloshy uncured resin. Yeah, so if you're doing big ones like that Judge Dredd I showed you, what you essentially do is you tell the program to hollow it out. So instead of printing it as one big resin block, it essentially builds the walls of the outside of it, and then you basically use the software to put a few drain holes in it as well. So when you take it off the build plate, all of the resin can drain out of those holes. When you get into the wash station, the IPA gets inside and cleans it all out. It makes it a bit lighter, but it saves you money on sort of resin. It's because you're using less resin. And as Bill's saying there as well, what you don't get is wet resin inside basically like a sealed block, if you like. Dave McKay is calling it a night. Take it easy. Thank you very much, Dave. Christian, see if you've got any new toys or hobby supplies. Don't forget the Goblin Gaming affiliate link. Thank you very much, mate. I think tonight I've actually put a link to the printer that I bought and the wash and cure station as well. Put an Amazon link in. It is an affiliate link, but it kind of lets you get a bit more details and stuff about what I actually bought. If you are buying from Amazon and you click through my affiliate link, it doesn't cost you any more, but I do make a small commission and it helps support the channel. So yeah, I would appreciate that support. Thank you. Tiny Wargame says, great review, great hobby. I would say defo buy a printer and a wash and cure machine. Great fun, great for terrain and minis alike. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of to sort of printing up all those little bits of scatter terrain and the little bits that's going to make my, even just things for when I'm photographing minis for the channel, or when I might building some like diorama things and stuff in the future. Being able to just pick and choose and just say, right, I'm going to print that one. It's going to be really really good. He says, also have a big bin handy for tissues and old gloves. Yeah, as I showed when I showed around the room earlier on, I've got a big bin underneath the bench there as well. Peter says, I'm interested by it, but hearing Andy now explaining the mess, I already can't be bothered. It's not that messy. That's the thing. It's not that thing. Geek Gaming Scenic says, leave the models on the build plate and stick the whole thing in your wash and cure. It's far cleaner. I hate the bigger plates because I can't do that. Yeah, the bigger ones don't fit inside those wash and cure. I think when I read about it, it was saying if the model is under a certain height, you're better off kind of putting it in the basket, if you like. But yeah, there is. What I didn't show was when I showed you is that it comes with a little bracket, so you can actually clip the bracket on the top of it and actually put the build plate on it as well. So with the resin model still hanging on it, put it in there, and it will just wash the whole thing as well. The only downside to that is you have to put a lot more IPA into that tub, because it's it only goes so far down. But yeah, you're going to use that stuff anyway. It's good for about probably 30 washes. And then essentially what you can do is you will have IPA that's contaminated with resin. What you do is basically put the lid on it and seal it. You kind of leave it out in the sun for a while, and what happens is the sun will cure the uncured resin inside that. You can then pour the IPA through a filter and reuse the IPA again, and that resin sludge basically stick it onto a bit of kind of a tray or something like that. Leave it out in the sun, let it fully cure, and then you can handle it like cured resin. Basically, you can dispose of it that way. So it's better than trying to dispose of kind of one. You don't want to be wasting the IPA. The other one is you don't want to be having to go to kind of like local recycling places and having to dispose of bottles and bottles of basically what's essentially classed as hazardous waste at that point. Phil says 3D printing role-playing game. I mean, there's a lot of Kickstarters and stuff that actually like basically selling full kind of like sort of D&D modules and stuff with all of the print files for stuff. Tiny Wargame says, once you're set up and organised, you will soon be printing your own vehicles, tanks and minis, and get painting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of taking that first one that I've supported myself and printed it off and primed it up and painted it. That'll be a nice little kind of a nice little journey, that one. Ian H says, one glove removes chance of issues and people overplay the risk of resin that comes from at least 3 chemical engineers I've spoken with. To be honest, mate, I'd just rather not get it on my skin, and I'd rather not take the chance for the sake of like some rubber gloves, to be honest, mate. Luke says, how do you know what resin to buy, or do they almost all work with well-known brand? To be honest, mate, there's lots of different brands of stuff. There's lots of different types of resins. You need to do a little bit of research because it also depends on what you're trying to print as well. Some resins will work better for certain applications. I just bought the Elegoo resin because it's an Elegoo printer, and I knew what settings I should be using for that. As I get more experience, I might want to kind of experiment and stuff, but certainly starting out, I want to minimize the amount of variables in it. I don't want to be using a printer with a resin that's not necessarily recommended for that printer at this stage, and then not understand why something's gone wrong. Is it the settings that are wrong? Is the resin not very good? Are the two not compatible? So you can, like, there's people online will give you kind of ideas, and this one works well, this one doesn't. Here's some good settings for using with this printer with this resin. So yeah, there is places to kind of start from. Steve says, yeah, looking to make 40k Titan scale weapon options or 28mm ships for Kings of War Armada. 28mm ships you'd be able to print, no bother, mate, on there at all. The Titan scale stuff, I've seen people making like Warlord Titans or Warhound Titans on like the PLA printers, but it's just those layer lines, mate. I know you can kind of minimize them, but people say, oh, but you don't have any of that post-processing stuff of cleaning and curing and all that stuff. But you might not have that, but then you do have to fill them. You do have to sand them with the plastic stuff, and that's as much kind of piss on as I need, to be fair. Steve says, next step is printing it painted. I have seen that there was colour printers, wasn't there? Like they were doing different stuff. I think that's probably a little while off yet. Bill says, Elegoo and Syria Tech are all I use. Very happy with them. I've heard of the Syria Tech stuff, mate. I've literally bought one bottle of resin at the minute, so I haven't tried different things. John says, ordinarily I instinctively mistrust new technologies, but in this case I can see enormous potential, particularly for producing copies of obsolete or out of production models. You can, mate, assuming somebody has uploaded the files, or you're good enough to sculpt them yourself. Tony says, I want to see if I can get 35mm 1920s car, which seems to be a 3D print only option, but I'm in no rush on that. Still researching. Yeah, let me know, mate. If I can help, I will. John says, someday I'll be able to print copies of late 70s space lizards with lasers. Lee says, damn it, Andy, now I want a 3D printer. To be like I said, as I mentioned before, I haven't been sent this. This isn't for review or anything like that. This is stuff that I've kind of mulled over and researched and decided what was best for me. And I've bought everything with my own money. It's not sponsored. It's not provided for me, any of that kind of stuff. So I'm giving you my honest opinion, really. Not that I'm not saying other people not giving honest opinions, but what I mean is this is something I've bought for myself, and I'm telling you what I think about it. So if I'd spent the money on it and I thought I'd wasted my money, I'd still tell you. But so far, I'm really impressed. It was really daunting, I'll be honest. It was really daunting to be able to, like, when I got to the point where it's like, right, I feel like I know everything now. I've got everything set up. I now need to put a pair of gloves on, and I need to pour some resin in that bath, and I need to start printing something. It was quite nerve-wracking, actually, because it was almost, I'm taking the plunge now. I am literally diving in. I'm going to have to, it's going to start doing stuff. But once it started, the problem was it took about 2 hours before I realised it was a failed print. And that was because at that point I didn't realise I could pause it halfway through and it would lift up and it would let me look on the bottom of the build plate. Had I done that after about 15 minutes, I would have saw there was nothing stuck to it and it would have saved me a lot of time. I realised that when I come to do my second print. So I set the second one away after cleaning everything down. After I knew it had printed enough layers that I would be able to see something on the plate, I pressed the pause button. What happens is it finishes the layer it's doing, and then the print bed lifts up so I can physically see underneath the print bed. Because unfortunately, if you're printing something at say 28mm, 30mm high, the vat of resin is about 20mm, 25mm high. It never comes out high enough for you to see what's on the bottom of the plate. Once I kind of got a bit more confidence with the second one, and I was able to just go, all right, I'm just going to pause it. I don't care if it messes it up. I want to understand if it's working, kind of thing. And it came up, and I could see those two little circles where it was printing like those little Rook models. I just pressed play again, and it went back down and carried on. And there was no marks in that print where I'd kind of stopped it halfway through. So I did the same thing when I was printing the miniature as well. As case of, right, I know it failed the first time, let's see if it works the second time, and it worked like a dream. Gary Powell says, so been busy printing and forgot to log on earlier. Been working from home today, have a bit of a print farm going. Yes, you do, mate. VG says, on the wash and cure, different strokes. I live in Australia and use a pickle strainer and cure it in water in the sun or under a UV nail hood. Yeah, it depends on what you're doing, mate. I mean, the UV nail hoods are fine if you're doing miniatures. If you're doing anything bigger, you then end up trying to kind of cobble together some kind of unit and stuff. For me, it was just ease of process. We don't get the sunshine here to be able to use it outside. Like, I probably get 1 day a year where I can probably use like a decent kind of high UV rays outside. For me, it was far better to have a unit that was kind of fit for purpose and just made the process easier for me. Gary says he's going to be offering some training and try before you buy sessions when the rules allow, so you can catch me on the Nottingham Board and War Games Club Facebook group. Yes, mate. Steve says, what's the average print time for a human-sized 28mm mini? If you're printing it in the kind of like in the upright position, mate, you're probably talking about 4 hours. However, you can change that by doing things like bigger layers. So the one I printed, I think I printed at like 0.04. You can print them at like 0.02. You can go down to, you can print them higher. If you, as you get used to it, you can do lower exposure times, which speeds it up. So instead of exposing, say, let's say it exposes for 8 seconds a layer, if you can drop that down to 4 seconds per layer, that halves the time that it takes to kind of make the model. So I would say probably about 4 hours, but that's 4 hours even if you had a build plate full of miniatures. So you could probably print like 15 or 20 models in 4 hours as well. Luke's saying, I use meths at the moment. Mate's working great for making your ISO meths again. Do a quick spin, then cure. It floats to the top and scrape it out. I'll have to have a look at that one, mate. Peter says, does anyone print terrain as prefab style and then assemble it like a kit? They do, mate, actually. There's a number of different places where you can basically print it in sections and then put it together. John saying, models for a game from the 1978 Strike Team Alpha is what I'm down to get copies of. Yeah, it just depends on whether somebody's took the time to do the files, mate. VJ saying, learning to repose existing sculpts is where I'm at. Yes, mate. I'm going to skip ahead because I'm not too far. I've kind of caught up a little bit now. Let me get a drink because my throat's getting dry now. James is saying, night all, calling it. Thanks. Good night, mate. John saying, not enough nukes and skirmish games these days. VG says, exactly right on your call on Resins, Andy. I've stuck with Frozen as that's my printer brand and they were very active online with support. Yeah, that's it, mate. Luke's saying the resins are more or less the same, transparent, need to tweak a little, but that's it. The issue I have is the resins are not made to straight mixing like the high-end resins that are 150 a bottle. Yeah, cheaper stuff we use, you can buy the same again and have to tweak the settings. Yeah, I suppose consistency is probably the big thing, mate. Where are we up to here? Paul saying plastic FDM printers are best for large models, particularly with highly textured surfaces, such for example buildings. I still can't get away with the layer lines, mate, even like in big buildings and stuff. Like for me, that I know you can dial them in. Everybody that's got one keeps saying to me, oh, you can hardly see them. I see them, mate, and for me personally, I'm not keen on them. I see some great ones where people have taken time. I've seen them where they're using kind of like vapors to try and kind of smooth out the edges. I've seen a video where somebody actually uses resin and pours resin on the outside and basically kind of uses the resin to smooth it out. I think they're great bits of kit, but they have their applications, and I think fine detail is not one of them. Vijay says, I hope the 3D printing channel on Discord has been helpful to your journey so far. To be honest, mate, I'd kind of already made up my decision before the 3D printing, before you asked for the 3D printing channel in the Discord. So for those that don't know, we have a Discord channel which is for Patreon members. Please do check it out. And we have a channel for 3D printing, and there's been a lot of chatting there. And I think there's a mixture of folks who were on the fence, a bit like I was as well, and folks who've been printing for a while, kind of helping each other out and answering some basic questions and things. And it's been really useful if anybody sees like some good files that they found online, or like a new Kickstarter or a new Patreon or something coming out, they're kind of sharing that kind of stuff as well. I think it's really useful. St. Louis Keith says, anyone have experience with the plant-based resins? I've not used any yet, mate. I've literally used one bottle of resin. That's all I know about at the minute. I think the plant-based resins are, again, I think they're not healthy. Do you know what I mean? So for me personally, if they're still resin. They're like even the water, like the water washable resins are still resin. You still need to wear safety glasses. You still need to wear gloves, kind of things. You don't want to splash it in your eyes. You don't really want to get it on your skin. So even like they're not suddenly kind of like safe to use. You can bath in the stuff, kind of thing. They're still resins, if you like. Marcus says, here in my city, there are on average 297 sunny days a year. Yeah, I think there's 200 and there's more like 360 rainy days a year here, mate, to be fair. Yeah, Luke's saying hate FDM. Yeah, honestly, that's... And Luke, other Luke as well, has said, I've never seen an FDM print I'd be happy overall with, just not for me. They're not for me either, mate. I think the fact that they're plastic, like, and they're stronger than resin, they've got some really good applications. So if you're printing them to make things like that need a bit of strength, I completely get it. Like the fact that there's companies, is it like Prussia, I think it is, who are almost making 3D printers out of 3D printers, if you like. I think that's fantastic use of technology, like fast prototyping and stuff like that. I completely get it. But when it comes to detail, I just can't get past those kind of like those layer lines, really. I think from a distance they look fine. Like when I see people showing like photographs online and stuff, as soon as I see anybody like dry brushing them and stuff, it just exasperates it. And I honestly feel that like people are, they almost try and like justifying to say like, honestly, I'm happy with it. I really don't mind those layer lines kind of thing. Even when you dial them in, even when you do them as good as you can still see them. And for me, I'd rather just buy a piece of terrain in plastic or something like that, or in resin, like a cast one. I'd rather spend my money on that than spend my money on a PLA printer and then never be happy with the finish of them. FDM, sorry, not PLA. Steve says, nice, even more interested, just need to follow on designs and details and designs. I don't fancy the layer lines, it just seems much work to smooth it out. Yeah, that's kind of the bit that is like people who always say, but the plastic ones, you don't have to do any of this cleaning and stuff afterwards. And it's like, you don't, but you do have to sand the shit out of it. Luke says, he's got two at the minute and I'm trying to get the most out of them and I'm still not convinced. Great for prototyping, great for base shapes to work from. Yeah, that's exactly it, mate, yeah. Paul says, if the surfaces have strong textures, you can see the lines so much on large items. Basically, they can't do smooth horizontal surfaces. Yeah, exactly, mate. Vijay saying, FDM printers need so much more tweaking as well. I think... yeah, I mean, they're very mechanical, if you like. I mean, like you say, belts, belt tightness, stepper motors moving. I feel like the learning curve actually on those printers is probably higher than it is on resin. Gary says, layer lines is a big discussion, but there are plenty of solutions. But from a normal gaming distance for terrain, once painted, it's fine. The problem is, mate, is I would know. And this is a personal thing. If other people are happy with it, absolutely knock yourself out. But it's all right when it's on the table. Like if you're wanting to get lots of terrain made for a tournament or an event or something like that, I completely understand it. But it's not going to be at a gaming distance when I'm sitting painting it, and I'm seeing all them ridges, and I would know if it was my own personal terrain. I don't care if it's somebody else's. If they're happy with it, that's all that matters. But if it was my own personal stuff, if I'd spent money on a printer and money on spools of plastic, and I'd spend time making it, and then I have to sit and paint it, and I'm thinking constantly like having to sand it out or primer filler all over top, or trying to smooth it out with filler paste and stuff. For me personally, I'd rather just buy a plastic piece of terrain. Marcus is saying, you know what FDM printers do quite well? Large wooden buildings, that added texture looks pretty good. I'm still not convinced, mate, because it's too horizontal. It's not like it's wooden kind of waves, if you like. Steve says, plant-based resin, unless we have corpse starch-based resins. Luke says, don't put water resin down the sink. I have this vision of loads of people washing their models in the sink. That's the other thing as well. So when people talk about water washable resin, it's not like you can just run it under the tap and wash it in water. You like, so that the wash and cure station that I showed you, you would still have to use something like that, but just use water instead of IPA. So it's not a case of just like washing it on the sink and letting all the resin kind of pour down. This was my point really about it's still resin. It's still not nice. It doesn't suddenly become safe because it's water washable. Where are we up to here? Steve says plant-based, like tree sap. I'm not entirely sure, mate, but it's something to do with trees, to do with plants and stuff. Phil says, cheers on the night, folks. Thank you very much, mate. Take care. Christian saying that plenty of idiots run their water washable prints under the tap and down. It's frustrating. Yes, mate. Until their plumbing gets screwed up as well. Gary saying half my printers are FDM and the other half are resin. Terrain is still best in FDM. You need to use different painting techniques and not your normal primers. Luke saying glorified glue guns. That's exactly how I see them, mate, as well. Luke said FDM printers are very good for making inserts for board games. Yeah, for making, like, I honestly, I see the benefit in making like little sort of like inserts for board games, making little trays just for putting chits and stuff in, making things for like what do you call it, like painting handles, things to hold paint pots so they don't get knocked over. I completely understand all that kind of stuff, but that's not really what I want to make. Which is why I ended up going with resin printers. Vijay saying, yeah, I've heard those filler primers are good for FDM printed terrain. Yeah, but then what you're doing is you're essentially just clogging it up, aren't you? Like, you spent a lot of time trying to print it and get some detail in it, and then you just go and fill it all up, basically. Paul says, I have an Ender 3 and it's a pain in the arse. I still think it's great for large, highly textured surfaces, but we get a lot of print failures. It's really temperamental. Yeah, I have heard that they're not very predictable. Steve says, anybody use an ultrasonic washer for their prints? Yeah, you can use ultrasonic cleaners. The problem with an ultrasonic cleaner is you're not meant to put IP in it because it's flammable. So you need to kind of put it in IPA and then put the IPA in the bath. The only other thing is, by the time you buy a decent size ultrasonic cleaner for cleaning bigger stuff, you might as well just sort of scrub it with a toothbrush, kind of in a plastic tub type thing. Yes, soy-based, yeah, plant-based, as it used to be a plant about 60 million years ago until it decomposed and became oil. Yes. Steve says, cheers for doing this video. I'll have a call at night. It's been very helpful. Thank you very much, mate. And Christian says, I rarely use my Ender 3 anymore. It's slow to get objects printed and the quality is nowhere near resin. And Paul says, the Ender 3 is very predictable as long as you predict it's going to fail. And Gary says, yes, I got 2 ultrasonics. I do use IPA, but don't run it for long bursts. Yeah, I wouldn't. The problem is that you have to sit and watch them. You don't want to be bursting into flames, that's for sure, mate. It only needs to go wrong once, that's the problem. And Vijay says, yeah, time to hit the studio and get some work done. And to be honest, folks, we're at 11 o'clock now, so I'm going to call it a night myself as well, because it's been one of them nights where technology's been all over the place. We did manage to actually get a stream out. It did manage to keep it working. We've had lights go out. We've had microphones break down, all sorts of stuff tonight. But we got there in the end. So we're going to call it a night. I'll be back on Wednesday for the hobby hangout. So if you want to just kind of come and sit and paint something and just come and sit and chat, if you've got any more questions that you want to ask me that you think of between now and then, Wednesday we can do that, or you can put them down in the comments of this video as well. Christian sharing the link there for the Patreon as well. This is all funded by the community, by you, the viewer. So if you do want to support what I do and you do want to keep it kind of happening long term, this is my job, this is my business, this is what I do now. If you do appreciate kind of me being sort of impartial and unsponsored, and you want to support that, please do check out the Patreon. From as little as $2 a month, you get access to the private Discord, and then there's different levels up from there as well with different benefits. So yeah, please do check out. I appreciate that. So folks, we will see everyone on Wednesday, everyone who turns up. And if not, I will see you next week in next week's Monday night live stream. Thanks very much, folks. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month. And there is lots of different tiers and bonuses, which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.